Hi there. Welcome back to Tarot by Janine. How's everybody doing? I'm doing really good. We're going to talk about the Canadian election. It's a big deal. It's a big deal because it's the first one during, the whole kind of false situation that's going on. The first election since the November 2020 was manipulated in the US. So this is going to be interesting. Everybody, all eyes are on this. I mean, is it real? Is it real? Is it part of the movie? Like, who's in charge of the election? Is it actually a legitimate election? Like, I'm wondering, because I believe there's a shadow government ruling in the background, or at least overseeing things in all the countries and puppeting these people. So, how can there be an election if that's the case? So we're going to look at that. Will the results actually count? So that would go along with that question. Is it real? Is that actually Mr. T, Canadian Mr. T? So Trudeau, is that actually Trudeau going to all those towns, getting booed and rocks thrown at him? So we're going to ask, who is that guy? Is that actually, did they bring him out a Gitmo for that, or what's going on, right? They brought him out of the spa just for that. Like, what is actually going on all around this election? Because it seems legit, or people are thinking it is. A lot of Canadians, what I'm picking up being a Canadian, is they're thinking unfortunately, the Conservative Party is going to win. Okay, now I'm not saying that's true. I have no idea. Every one of them, I think, are globalists. You name it, they're all globalists. Like, I can't see anybody really. There might be maybe one candidate, in Quebec or something that's worth looking at, but they're all suspect. As far as I'm concerned, the whole bunch of them are just another shade of New World Order. So I'm not trusting any one of them. So it would be really, really, really hard to actually vote in this election, right? You should or whatever, but it's going to be really hard. But anyway, so we've got some really big, interesting things to look at here. So let's start with who's in charge of the election and is it real? Yeah, that could be two questions, could be one. So let's just start there. We've got a couple of interesting things here. That's my USA Mr. T card. That's my Trump card right here. And we've got the 8 of Wands. So they're wanting us to believe it's real. But if it was real, that ace would be on either one of these sides. This is the is it real card. The question, and the actual answer to the question. And this is in the middle. So they want us to believe it's real. So this leads me to believe this is part of the movie, people. This is part of the movie because we've got Mr. T and the White Hats Alliance card here. We've got the 8 of Wands, which is a whole lot of efforts going into leading you to believe it's real. So for all intents and purposes, so this looks like another way to gauge the who's paying attention, who's awake, who isn't. This is another way to help wake people up, have an election, and get everybody thinking about what do they really want going forward? What does this person really stand for? What does that person really stand for? It's hopefully some sleepers are actually waking up. Also, you get to really look closely at what these people are bringing, which is, if you listen to their platforms, pretty much nothing. Okay. They're sidestepping everything to do with what's been going on for the last year and a half or 2 years. Okay. Very few of these politicians are even tackling that. Okay. Some guy came to my door and he was representing the Conservative Party. And I actually said to him, listen, if this guy you're representing here isn't for shutting down all of the ridiculous, draconian, absurd communist rules that are being forced upon us and all, and if our rights don't get reinstated the minute they get in, I'm not voting for your guy. Okay, so just get off my property. Right? And the guy was all like, whoa. And he was wearing one of these things when he came up, and I'm just looking at him like, seriously, buddy, just get off my property. And he's like, oh, well, we can't really, our conservative guy, that's not his territory. I said, it's everybody's territory. Okay. Human rights are everybody's territory. If you're representing a politician who won't go near something that big and so that obvious that's affecting the entire world, okay, and has no platform on, the world situation, then why would I even want to talk to this guy? Anyway, he hightailed it off my porch, I'll tell you that. Anyway, okay, so this is part of the movie, people. We've got the Empress here in the near future. So the Empress, that's a weird card to have in the near future. Things getting a lot more comfortable, things getting a lot more abundant and comfortable in the future, or something about the feminine. Does anybody know if there's a woman could possibly get in to be the next Canadian Prime Minister? Because I can't think of who that would be. That doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem like any of the heads of these parties who would actually end up being the Prime Minister would be a woman. But that's really interesting because that's a feminine card. But we could read it a different way. We could read it that things will get a lot more abundant and comfortable in our country after this. And it feels like there's something that's going to be really uncomfortable happen right in the 11th hour at the Tower card. So there could even be a bit of some kind of a disaster go on that draws everybody's attention somewhere else. And then this turns into a much better country, much more abundance for us going forward. So that doesn't sound like any of those politicians get rule in the country because they're literally all of them globalists from what I can see. Some of them are talking the talk, maybe one or two, but literally most of them aren't even touching the subject of anything real. It's just a riot. So this is it. Let's keep looking. So more female cards. Wow. Okay, we've got the Queen of Cups and the Ace of Wands. So if anybody knows, because it looks like the next person who actually guides our country. Now that's interesting because that woman put in place that we're not sure if she's a woman or not. Romana calls herself the Queen of Canada. I mean, I wonder if she ends up the interim leader here, like it's been said she is. If that's the case, I'd be really surprised. But if it isn't her, it could be somebody else. But there's a female who ends up leading our country. So that doesn't sound like the elections are very real. So chime in the comments if you guys think you know what I'm getting at here. This is very weird. And it also looks like there's going to be a really big sort of explosive situation. I hope that's not literal. Okay, that takes everybody's attention away right at the last minute, which could totally divert our attention away from them altogether. So my next question is, will the results count? So it looks like it's part of the movie, but they want you to believe it's real. Okay, that somehow part of the plan is that we go forward as if we're actually we're actually going to vote somebody, and there's. So that's interesting. So will the results actually count? So once things go down, whatever happens appears to be a movie, but going forward, will actually the results count? I mean, but let's have a look. Some of what happens will count and some of what happens won't. How do you like that? So we've got that Two of Pentacles. Two of Pentacles. So some will count and some will not. We've got this Knight of Cups. There's still a lot. It's almost like if a big part of the population likes the results, we'll even have an option to instate it or allow it to count. That's what it feels like. It feels like it's going to be handed over to the general population to decide once truths come out. And it feels like that's right around the same time as the election. A lot of truth, or shortly after the election, a lot of truth comes out. And there's going to be a big sort of explosive situation. And that could be even information explosive. I'm not sure what I mean by that, right? I'm I'm not trying to scare anybody, but the tower is like, it can be a revelation. So we're going to have some revelations even between now and the election date, which is upon us, right? And I feel like right after or just at the time of the election, a lot of truths could come out, like the truth that we're actually watching a movie could have already been spilled here. That's kind of looks like one of the strategies here. So it's really touch and go if we actually, first of all, end up being allowed to vote, because this big disruption could come right at the very day of or a day before. That's the feeling I'm getting. Or it could come shortly after. So the results could be really up in the air and we would have to weigh them out as a people, and we'd be allowed to really look at, once we know some truths, we'd be allowed to really look at the results and figure out going forward what we want to do with it. I feel like we're getting handed the hot potato as a group, like, so the Canadians. Wow. Okay, I like that actually. That's really cool. So what else? Okay, so we want to look at, is that guy that calls himself Justin Trudeau, is that actually the physical Justin Trudeau, the original? Okay, walking around, the guy that's getting booed off stages and chased out of towns. He's been chased out of a small town. People threw gravel at him. He didn't get hurt, trust me. But yeah, so interesting. Now, that tells me if actually in this movie he ends up actually winning, trust me, that would have been a big rig job. Okay. Same thing that happened in the US election would have happened clearly. I wonder if that's part of the movie. I wonder if they want to put that really obvious in our faces, in which case the results, we'll have to decide what we're going to do with that later. So wow, this is interesting. Okay. That guy walking around, who's that? Okay, so the real guy is nowhere near this. So it's not the real guy. But there's 3 different people going to speeches and rallies. So he's got 3 different stand-ins. We'll just call them stand-ins. We're not sure. Are they clones? They say that the White Hats don't use clones. So possibly they're actors. They say they use actors. So we got 3 different ones. So it would be interesting to get a whole bunch of really good close-up pictures blown up of him at all these functions and just have a look, see if we can find 3 different characters there, 3 different sets of ears or noses or whatever. Yeah. So here we've got the 3 of Swords. And so the real guy is actually facing some kind of judgment and could likely be in real big jeopardy, like where he could be fighting for his life, let's just say. Yeah, his processing is going to be brutal is what I'm going to say. Okay, and we've got the Hanged Man. So we're not going to find out about that till after, though. So in the meantime, for the sake of the movie, you can, the sleepers are going to think that's the real guy. They're not ready to show us that's not the real guy. It's coming soon, but they're not ready yet. Yeah, the real guy is actually under some kind of restraint, basically. So somewhere warm, and he had to travel to get there. So guess what? That sounds like the south of Florida spa to me. Apparently, they're making it even bigger. So Mr. B and team, they wanted to shut it down. They're making noise to shut it down. That's because they know their real selves are sitting in that spa. That's why they want to make a noise about shutting it down. Okay. So now I want to ask, going forward, how should Canadians, what do we need to do just to stay sane while we're having a fake movie? Like all the people that are 5D and or aware and awake in these times. How do we get through this? Because, and just anybody watching, like some advice from the universe, how do we get through something that's actually a movie that, and orchestrated for our awakening? So the awakening of the sleeping, obviously not the people watching this video, because we're all obviously all awake. But there is so many people that actually think this is real. And then when the results do come in, if it's actually allowed to go all the way forward, because it looks like the 11th hour is going to be really interesting, I feel like, how do we approach this? Do we need to go through the motions? And I would never tell people not to vote, by the way. But how do we approach it? Because seriously, when I look at what's out there and what I would have to choose from, I know there's ways to think about it. But let's ask what the universe wants to say about voting day. If we get all the way to there, because it looked like something could go down right at the last minute here. And then if it does actually go all the way to that, because it looks like there's a lot of things in play right around that time, feels like a really interesting time in history. If something does happen, and of course, any one of the choices, I doubt anybody'd be really happy with, especially truthers. So how do we deal with that? If that goes all the way through, but we know it's a movie and likely it'll get stepped back. That's what it looks like. Looks like the results are going to get stepped back, and we're going to have a choice to make about, do we keep this, or do we want to do this again, or how do we want to go forward? And it feels like more abundance and much better times coming for us, but not till after this troublesome time. I'm thinking by in the new year, things are looking a lot better just for the whole world, by the way. But let's ask the universe how to get to that good place. How do we get through? Because we're looking literally at the storm right now. It's like upon us. Okay. Right off the bat, we've got my first 3 cards down are major arcana. Wow, that's huge, right? And justice. So this is a karmic time that was known by the universe, and we all agreed to be here. So we got to remember that. We all agreed to be in this movie right now. We're all in the matrix right now. We're all in the movie. Okay, and we've got the star. So trusting, but I don't mean trust in some external person or whatever. We're more like talking trust in your connectedness to the universal love. Trust in your right to be a sovereign human. Trust that you have a soul living in a physical body and you chose to come here and you're learning a lesson. That kind of bigger trust, not like trust in the government, obviously not, and certainly not trusting in big pharma. No, we're not going to trust in that. Or religious leaders. No, we're not. We know better, right? We know better who not to trust now. Certainly not any kind of monarchies. It's absurd even to think about they were even allowed to exist, actually. It's almost laughable, right? So no, we're not talking about that kind of trust. We're talking bigger universal trust in your soul's right to be a sovereign being on the earth plane. You have a right to be here. That kind of big trust. That's what we're talking about. So the universe wants you to trust in that. Also trust that there's off-world or communities of people. Again, I don't know names of these off-worlders, so I'm not going to try to say I know the names of them, or other truthers are intuits are picking up on those things. I don't pretend to know that. But this card to me now in all of these kind of layouts and readings, it comes up as otherworldly beings that are up for the good of humanity. Okay, so we're trusting in not only our own connectedness, but trust in that there are off-worlder and energies beyond what we can see, right? Some people can see them, but what we know for sure, they're beyond that in other galaxies, all watching and in a friendly way, watching us go through this quantum leap for mankind, this huge shift and change. And they've seen it coming and they know what's coming and they're there to help. Okay, so asking for help from your own higher connectedness and off-worlders, if you feel comfortable doing that, the good ones that are there to help humans, right? So don't forget you have friends not only in the galaxy, but befriend your own soul connectedness, if that makes any sense. And see that ace there, right? Every day, just go forward one day at a time and do what feels right for you. Each person to really take seriously the fact that you're a sovereign being. If you want to play it out in this election and you feel like it would be a worthwhile thing, you go down there and you vote for who feels right. You use your mind and intuition and choose how to proceed, because your freedom demands you take your freedoms up. Okay, so go, don't listen to anybody, don't do this, do that, never mind, right? That's why I get suspicious of the Queen of Canada telling everybody not to vote. It's like, I don't think anyone should tell you to or yes or do this or don't do that. Go choose for yourself what to do to truly behave like a sovereign being. Make a choice, stick to it, own it. Take responsibility for it, whatever it is. But really think it out. Why am I doing this? And do something, take an action. So take action from where your heart tells you to take action. That's what you want to do. Don't let anybody tell you what that action should be. You decide personally. Thank you so much for watching my video, and do like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already.